All right, it is currently January 7th, 2022. It's about 10:30 p.m. and it's time for story time. So lately I've been listening to a lot more classical music, and I've been doing that because I've been running, and that's time to myself to kind of discover music, right? And classical music is by no means a new thing for me. I actually, as a kid, mostly listened to classical music. So it's kind of like a rediscovery for me. I've been listening to a lot of Rachmaninoff lately, and that reminds me of a particular story in my life that I'd like to share. So, when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in my parents' car because I would go with them to and from work a fair bit when I was younger, and their place of work was, decent distance away from where we lived. There was a good commute, and my parents weren't the type to listen to music in the car. They didn't turn on the radio or anything like that. And so I had the liberty of um, turning on the radio and picking what I wanted to listen to. And um, for a good long period in my childhood, like I said, I listened to classical music, and I would listen to 96.3 classical FM. And there was a particular program in the evenings. I can't remember what it was called or who the host was, but it was hosted by this woman who had just like the most relaxing voice. And I know it's such a trope to sort of associate classical music with being relaxing. Some of it can be, but like I find a lot of classical music to be incredibly intense. Yeah, oftentimes I find that I can't work and listen to classical music at the same time because I just stop working and I just listen to the music instead. But this host of this particular program, she did have a very relaxing voice. I mean, she did nighttime programming, right? And I really should look up what that program is called. Forget. I'll look. I'll try looking it up, and if I do find out what that program is called, or who the host was on this 96.3 FM program, I'll just put it here. I don't know if there's going to be any text here, but we'll see. We'll see if I can find it. I mean, gosh, we're talking about something that's like 10, 20 years ago, right? Who knows if I'll ever be able to find it. But anyway, the thing that really stuck out to me about that program was that it had a theme song. Whenever the program came on, they would play a theme song. It's just a short snippet, right? And then they would go on to whatever the host had lined up for that program. But that theme song was so incredibly beautiful and moving that was what really stuck with me. And for a long time, for years, I didn't know what that song was, that the theme song for that program. And so I would very carefully listen to the program, as much of it as possible, as complete as possible, right? It's obviously how much I got to listen to was largely dictated by the commute, the amount of time we were in the car, and then what time we were driving. So, but like I would pay attention just in case that host would say what that theme song was. And it was like that for years, and I never heard what it was. I don't think I did anyway. I don't think she ever said what the theme song was. Not that I would expect that she would, right? But I guess part of me was hoping that maybe she would play the rest of that song as a song in her program, and then she would say what it was. But I don't think she ever did, because in my recollection I don't know that I don't think that's how I found out what it was. So then fast forward a little bit. When I was in medical school, I also listened to some classical music when I was studying. And at the time, that was kind of when I got into Rachmaninoff. And I can even tell you why I got into Rachmaninoff. Prior to this, I've always been a fan of music from the Romantic period, and Franz Liszt was a particular favorite. Obviously Chopin, right? And it wasn't until I was in medical school that I really paid attention to sort of, I don't know what I actually don't know what you would call Rachmaninoff's period. I guess maybe late Romantic, but that's when I started listening to Rachmaninoff. And maybe even like a little bit of some other stuff like Shostakovich or something. Anyway, like I said, I could tell you why I got into Rachmaninoff, and it was because at some point through YouTube, I caught a video. Sorry, I had to look it up. It was Valentina Lisitsa's performance of Rachmaninoff's Etude Tableau, Opus 39, number 6. And I was just mesmerized by that piece of work. And that led me to listening to the Etude Tableau essentially on repeat when I was studying. And of course, that led to me listening to more and more Rachmaninoff. Certainly I listened to his piano concertos, right? I can't remember when I watched Shine, but it might have been around that time period. And of course, Shine very prominently features his third piano concerto, which is a masterpiece. But like even more so, his second piano concerto is even more, right? It's just like even more mind-blowing piece of work. And anyway, I just fell in love with Rachmaninoff during that period of time. And I remember in my sort of search and discovery of his works, reading about his life. And one of the most interesting stories about him is that Rachmaninoff's first symphony was a disaster. And it was just very, very poorly received. And it drove him into a bout of depression, right? But he was very much redeemed with his second symphony. You can probably see where I'm going with this. And so that, of course, made me interested in what this redeeming symphony was. And wouldn't you believe it? I listened to it, and it was that piece of music. It was that theme song from that show on 96.3 Classical FM. It was the third movement of Rachmaninoff's Second Symphony. So, yeah. Anyway, I guess that's the story. I don't know how interesting this is, but that's how I found out many, many years later what the name is for that gorgeous piece of music that so captured me as a kid. I don't know what the point is of this story, but I guess part of me wishes that this could inspire somebody to discover Rachmaninoff, and I think there's no better gateway than his Second Symphony. It is literally in my opinion, probably one of the most perfect pieces of music ever written. I, there are many symphonies. There's like one movement that is a standout, right? And you couldn't you couldn't really care about any of the other movements, right? Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. First movement, obviously, it's one of the most famous pieces of music ever. But could you tell what the other movements were like? I don't know. I couldn't remember them right now. I think that's a very common theme. Classical music is great, I guess, but if I'm to be honest, there are a lot of sort of filler material, and that might be blasphemy to some people, but yeah, a lot of the symphonies or piano concertos or concertos in general, these are multi-movement pieces, and not all of them are memorable. But like Rachmaninoff's Second Symphony, every movement is just mesmerizing, and it's got just such a hauntingly beautiful melody throughout, and I think it's a good gateway for people who want to listen to classical music, because it almost feels like it could be film score, right? I think there's a lot of people out there in our current day who may not care for classical music, but will appreciate film music. And in some ways, this symphony kind of can pass for a film score. I think there's some parts of it, like in the I think the very first movement, that sounds like it would fit right in with like Lord of the Rings, the movie. Anyway, just such a fantastic piece of music, about the most perfect piece of music ever written in the history of man, I think. And I hope this inspires somebody to give it a listen and to discover it. I would say that if you like what you hear, your next stop should probably be Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, another piece that is, I would consider, near perfection. And then if you wanted to listen to the Etude Tableau, that one is like, it's a collection of many short works. It's actually 2 opuses. Not all of them are like winners. Not all of them are bangers, I should say. But some of them are genuinely mind-blowing stuff. So anyway, I think that's all I wanted to say about it. I hope to do more videos like this, where I just kind of reminisce about my past and talk about things that were important to me when I was younger. Okay, all right, I'll see you in the next one.